My daughter raised her wine glass toward me across the candlelit table of her River Heights dining room, her smile as polished as the sterling silver cutlery she had inherited from her mother. It was Christmas Eve, and the 20-foot Douglas fir in the corner twinkled with lights that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. But as she proposed a toast to family, I noticed her husband slip something into my eggnog when he thought I was not looking. It was not nutmeg. I recognized the crushed white tablets dissolving into the cream. I had seen those pills before, in the medicine cabinet of my late wife's hospital room. Sedatives. The kind that could make an old man appear confused, disoriented, perhaps even incompetent. I did not confront them. I did not knock the glass away. Instead, I pretended to take a long sip while the liquid dribbled down my chin and into my flannel shirt, and I prepared to give the performance of a lifetime. My name is Walter Jennings. I am 67 years old, and for the past 42 years, I have let the world believe I am nothing more than a retired school janitor living on a modest pension in Winnipeg. I drive a 2009 Ford Ranger with rust eating through the wheel wells. I wear work boots from Marks that I have resold 3 times. I live in the same small bungalow on Macrae Avenue in the North End, where I raised my daughter Patricia after her mother passed. What nobody knows, not even my own flesh and blood, is that those decades of mopping floors and fixing broken lockers were just the beginning. Every paycheck went into rental properties when the North End was dirt cheap. Then strip malls. Then commercial buildings downtown. Today, I own Jennings Holdings Limited, a commercial real estate portfolio worth $180 million. But I kept it quiet. I wanted my daughter Trish to build her own character, earn her own way. I thought I was teaching her resilience. It seems I only taught her contempt. Before I tell you how I dismantled their scheme piece by piece, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you have ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to love you most, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you are going to want to see how this ends. The nightmare had been building for months, but it crystallized 4 hours before that Christmas Eve toast. I had arrived at my daughter's house in River Heights at 5 o'clock sharp, carrying a bottle of wine from the LC and a tin of butter tarts I had picked up at Jeannie's Bakery. The house was a sprawling 2-story affair on Waverly Street, the kind with a circular driveway and columns that screamed money. Money they did not have. I knew because I had seen the collection notices stuffed in their recycling bin during Thanksgiving, when I had offered to take out the garbage. $420,000 in debt across credit lines, a second mortgage, and a business loan for my son-in-law's failing cryptocurrency consulting firm. My daughter Patricia met me at the door. At 39, she still had her mother's auburn hair, but her eyes had gone sharp and calculating. They flickered over my old parka and snow-covered boots with barely concealed irritation. Her husband Derek appeared behind her, wearing a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my truck payment. He was 52, silver-haired, with the practiced charm of a man who had spent his career convincing people to invest in things that did not exist. "Merry Christmas, Walter," Derek said, extending his hand without warmth. He had never called me Dad. Not once in 12 years of marriage to my daughter. I was always Walter, spoken with the same tone one might use for the hired help. "Merry Christmas," I replied, shaking his hand. The grip was limp, dismissive. Patricia led me into the living room, where a fire crackled in a gas fireplace surrounded by marble I knew they could not afford. The Christmas tree dominated one corner, professionally decorated with matching ornaments and ribbon. There were no handmade decorations, no popsicle stick stars from Patricia's childhood. Those had been thrown away years ago, along with everything else that reminded her of our modest life on Macrae Avenue. I settled into a leather armchair while Derek poured drinks at the bar cart. Patricia perched on the edge of the sofa, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Dad," she began, her voice dripping with sweetness. "Derek and I have been talking, and we are worried about you. You are 67 now, living alone in that old house. The neighborhood is not what it used to be. We think it might be time to consider your options." "My options," I repeated. "Assisted living?" Derek interjected, handing me a crystal tumbler of what I assumed was whiskey. "There are some excellent facilities in the city. Wellington Place, for instance. Very dignified. They have a waiting list, but we have connections. I looked at the amber liquid in my glass and did not drink. Wellington Place cost $8,000 a month. They were not offering to pay. I am doing fine, I said. The house is paid off. I have my pension. I keep busy. But that is just it, Patricia pressed, leaning forward. You are not keeping busy, Dad. Mrs. Chicken next door called me. She said you have been forgetting to bring in your garbage bins, that you left the stove on last month, that you seem confused sometimes. Mrs. Chicken was 93 and mostly deaf. I had helped her bring in her garbage bins because she could not manage them in the snow. The stove incident had been a single time when I fell asleep watching the Jets game, but I saw how this was being spun. I am not confused, I said carefully. Of course not, Derek agreed, his smile not reaching his eyes. But these things can sneak up on a person. We just want to make sure you are taken care of, that your affairs are in order, you know, in case anything happens. There it was, the first card on the table. I have a will, I said. Everything goes to Patricia. You know that. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. Yes, but we were thinking about something more immediate, a power of attorney, just in case. Derek knows an excellent lawyer who specializes in estate planning, Harold Fitch. He could come by tomorrow, on Christmas Day, just for a quick chat. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. They wanted me to sign over control of my assets, my house, my entire life, to them. And they wanted to do it over Christmas dinner, when they thought I would be too sentimental to refuse. I will think about it, I said. Derek's smile flickered with annoyance. But Patricia recovered quickly. Of course, Dad. No pressure. Now, let me get you some eggnog. I made it from scratch, just like Mom used to. She disappeared into the kitchen, and Derek excused himself to check on something in his office. I was alone in the living room with the crackling fire and the twinkling tree. I set my untouched whiskey on the side table and stood. My knees protested, but I had spent 40 years climbing ladders and carrying mop buckets. I knew how to move quietly when I needed to. I made my way down the hallway, past the powder room and the formal dining room, toward the back of the house where Derek kept his office. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear voices. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. He is not going to sign voluntarily, Patricia was saying. I know my father. He is stubborn as hell. Then we go with Plan B, Derek replied. Harold says if we can get 2 doctors to certify him as mentally incompetent, we can petition the court for guardianship. Once we have that, we control everything. The house, the pension, any investments he might have squirreled away. How do we get the doctors? Patricia asked. Harold has contacts. One of them is a psychiatrist who owes him a favor. We just need your father to behave erratically enough to justify an evaluation. The sedatives should help with that. A few doses over the next few days, and he will be slurring his words, stumbling around, forgetting where he is. Perfect symptoms of dementia onset. My blood turned to ice. They were not just planning to pressure me. They were planning to drug me, destroy my credibility, and have me declared mentally unfit. All to get control of what they thought was a modest bungalow and a janitor's pension. If they only knew. What about the house? Patricia asked. How much can we get? Derek laughed. I ran the comps. That North End neighborhood is gentrifying fast. Developers are buying up those old lots for cash. The house itself is garbage, but the land is worth at least $600,000. Maybe more if we hold out for a bidding war. $600,000, Patricia breathed. Plus his pension, his savings, whatever he has in RRSPs. It could be close to $1 million total. That would clear our debt, save the house, and still leave enough to invest. Exactly. And the old man will be too zonked out in Wellington Place to even know what happened. Harold says the whole process takes about 3 months. By spring, we will be in the clear. I heard Patricia laugh, a sound I used to love when she was a little girl, now turned ugly and calculating. God, I cannot wait to sell that dump on Macrae. It smells like Old Man and Pine Sol. I have been embarrassed by that house my entire adult life. My hands were shaking, not with weakness, but with a cold, clarifying rage. My daughter, the girl I had rocked to sleep every night after her mother died of cancer, The girl I had taught to skate on the frozen retention pond behind the school. She was planning to drug me, steal everything I had, and warehouse me in a facility while she sold my home. I backed away from the door slowly, silently. I returned to the living room and settled back into my chair, composing my features into a mask of mild confusion. When Patricia returned with a crystal cup of eggnog, I noticed the slight residue around the rim where the crushed tablets had not fully dissolved. "Here you go, Dad," she said brightly. "Just how you like it." I took the cup. I raised it to my lips, and I pretended to drink deeply while letting the liquid spill down my chin and soak into my shirt. "Oh, Dad," Patricia said with exaggerated concern. "Let me get you a napkin. You are spilling everywhere." I let her dab at my shirt, playing the part of the doddering old man they wanted me to be. "Sorry," I mumbled. "I must be more tired than I thought." "Why don't you lie down in the guest room for a bit before dinner?" Derek suggested, materializing at Patricia's shoulder. "Rest up. It is going to be a long night." I nodded, letting them guide me upstairs to the guest room. I lay down on the bed and closed my eyes, listening to their footsteps recede down the hall. As soon as I heard them descend the stairs, I pulled out my phone. I did not call the police. Not yet. If I reported this now, it would be my word against theirs. They would claim I was confused, paranoid, already showing signs of the dementia they were manufacturing. I needed evidence. I needed witnesses. I needed to catch them in the act. I opened my encrypted messaging app and sent 2 texts. The first was to Margaret Blackwood, a private investigator I had retained 3 years ago when I first noticed discrepancies in Patricia's financial claims. She had been feeding me information ever since, documenting their debt, their schemes, their lies. "Situation critical," I typed. "Drugging attempt in progress. Recording needed. Send technical team to 847 Waverly Street, River Heights. Discreet approach." The second message was to Frank Morrison, my lawyer, and the only person on earth who knew the true extent of my wealth. Frank and I had served together on the board of the United Way for 15 years. He had helped me structure Jennings Holdings to be invisible, buried under layers of numbered companies and trusts. "Code red," I typed. "They crossed the line. Activate Protocol 7. Be ready at Health Sciences Center. Bring forensic accountant." I deleted the messages from my visible history and slipped the phone back into my pocket. Then I lay perfectly still, breathing slowly, waiting. 45 minutes later, I made my way downstairs for dinner. The dining room table was set with china and crystal, the centerpiece, a massive arrangement of red roses and evergreen branches. Derek had opened a bottle of wine that cost more than my monthly pension. Patricia had prepared a full Christmas spread, roast beef and Yorkshire pudding and Brussels sprouts and mashed potatoes. The food smelled delicious, but I trusted none of it. I took my seat at the foot of the table, opposite Derek at the head. Patricia sat between us, watching me with hawk-like attention. "This looks wonderful," I said, letting my words slur slightly. Patricia beamed. "Only the best for you, Dad." Derek raised his glass. "To family," he said. I raised my wine glass. I pretended to drink. "Eat up, Walter," Derek encouraged, gesturing at the loaded plate in front of me. "You need your strength." I made a show of cutting a piece of roast beef and lifting it to my mouth. I chewed slowly, watching them watch me. Their eyes tracked every movement of my fork, every motion of my jaw. They were waiting for the sedatives to take hold, waiting for me to become the confused, incompetent old man of their design. Halfway through the meal, I decided to give them what they wanted. I set down my fork and rubbed my forehead. I let my eyelids droop. "Dad?" Patricia said, her voice sharp with anticipation disguised as concern. "Are you okay?" "I feel strange," I mumbled. "The room is spinning." "You probably just need some air," Derek said, rising from his chair. "Let me help you to the living room." He took my arm and guided me away from the table. I let my feet stumble, let my body sway. I gripped his arm like a man losing his balance. "What is happening to me?" I slurred. "I do not understand." Patricia appeared at my other side. "It is okay, Dad. You are just tired. It has been a long day." They settled me on the sofa in the living room. I slumped against the cushions, letting my head loll to one side. I kept my eyes half closed, watching them through my lashes. "Is it working?" Patricia whispered. "Look at him," Derek replied, barely bothering to lower his voice. "He is already gone. By morning, he will not remember any of this." "Should we give him more?" "Not yet. We do not want to overdo it. The doctors need to see a gradual decline, not an overdose. We will dose him again tomorrow at breakfast, then take him to see Harold in the afternoon." "And Harold's doctor friend?" "Dr. Greenberg. He will do the evaluation on Boxing Day. Says he can expedite the paperwork through the courts. By New Year's, we will have the guardianship petition filed." I lay there, listening to them plan the dismantling of my life. They talked about my house like it was already sold. They debated which assisted living facility had the cheapest rates. They calculated how much they could extract from my pension and savings. "What about his will?" Patricia asked suddenly. "What if he left something to charity or something stupid?" Derek laughed. "Your father? He does not have enough to leave to charity. Besides, once we have guardianship, we can challenge any will. Mental incapacity, backdated to before the document was signed. Harold says it is routine." Patricia giggled. "God, this is really happening. We are finally going to be free of him. And free of the debt," Derek added. "By summer, we will be on a beach in Mexico, sipping margaritas and laughing about how easy this was." I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I did not wipe it away. I let it fall, evidence of the heart they were breaking. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A single vibration, the signal from Margaret. The team was in position. Everything was being recorded. I decided it was time to raise the stakes. I let out a low groan, clutching my chest. My body convulsed, and I slid sideways on the sofa. "Dad?" Patricia's voice went from triumphant to panicked in an instant. "Dad, what is wrong?" I gasped for breath, my hand pressed against my sternum. My legs kicked out, knocking over a side table, and sending a crystal vase shattering across the hardwood floor. "Walter!" Derek shouted. "What the hell?" I rolled off the sofa and collapsed onto the floor, my body twitching. I let my eyes roll back in my head. I made a horrible gurgling sound in my throat. "Call 911, Patricia screamed. "He is having a heart attack." Wait, Derek hissed, grabbing her arm. "If we call now, they might find the sedatives in his system. We need to think about this." "He is dying, Derek." "He is faking it. He has to be faking it." I let my body go limp, my breathing shallow and ragged. I heard Patricia fumbling with her phone, heard Derek pacing back and forth. "We should wait," Derek said. "See if he comes out of it. If he dies naturally, it solves all our problems. We cannot just let him die on our floor." "Why not?" Derek's voice had gone cold. "Think about it. No drugging to explain. No guardianship to fight for. He just had a heart attack on Christmas Eve. Tragic, but convenient." There was a long pause. A horrible, empty silence. "Okay," Patricia whispered finally. "Okay, we wait." I lay on the floor of my daughter's living room, listening to her decide whether to let me die. The girl I had loved more than my own life. The girl whose tuition I had paid, whose wedding I had funded, whose mistakes I had forgiven again and again. She was standing over my body, calculating the cost-benefit of my death. I gave them 5 minutes. 5 minutes of lying perfectly still while they debated my fate. Then the front door burst open. "Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Services," a voice shouted. "We received a cardiac emergency call at this address." Patricia screamed. Derek cursed. I heard the rush of boots on hardwood, the crackle of radios, the sharp smell of winter air flooding into the overheated house. "Sir, can you hear me?" A woman's voice, professional and calm. Hands were on my neck, checking my pulse. A light flashed in my eyes. I let my eyelids flutter open. I saw a paramedic in the standard blue uniform, but there was something else. A pin on her collar that caught my eye. A small silver maple leaf with the initials JH. Jennings Holdings. I gave the smallest nod. "We have a pulse," she announced loudly. "Thready but present. We need to transport immediately." "Wait," Derek protested, stepping forward. "How did you know to come? We did not call yet." The paramedic ignored him. "Sir, We are going to move you onto a stretcher now. Try to stay calm. I heard Patricia crying, but the tears sounded forced, theatrical. Can we ride with him? She asked. Follow in your own vehicle, the paramedic replied firmly. We need space to work in the ambulance. Health Sciences Center, emergency entrance. He will be there. They lifted me onto a stretcher with professional efficiency. Straps were secured across my chest. A blanket was tucked around my body. As they wheeled me toward the front door, I caught one last glimpse of Patricia and Derek standing in their expensive living room, surrounded by their expensive things, their faces masks of confusion and fear. The doors of the ambulance slammed shut. The siren wailed. We pulled away from the house. The paramedic leaned over me, her face breaking into a slight smile. You can relax now, Mr. Jennings, she said quietly. Margaret's team has everything, audio and video from 3 angles. The forensic accountant is already at the hospital with Mr. Morrison. I closed my eyes, letting out a long breath. Thank you, Cynthia, I said. Cynthia Park had worked for Jennings Holdings Security Division for 8 years. She was also a trained EMT, which made her perfect for tonight's operation. How much did they get? I asked. Enough to bury them, she replied. They discussed the sedatives, the guardianship scheme, the plans to sell your assets, and the part where they decided to let you die was particularly compelling. I felt the tears come again, hot and bitter. 42 years, I whispered. 42 years I gave everything for that girl. Cynthia said nothing. There was nothing to say. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic corridors. They wheeled me into a private room where Frank Morrison was waiting, along with Dr. Rachel Fong, a cardiologist who had been my personal physician for 15 years. The forensic accountant, a sharp-eyed woman named Geraldine Wu, sat in the corner with a laptop open on her knees. Walter, Frank said, clasping my hand as they helped me sit up in the bed. How are you feeling? Angry, I said. Sad. Determined. Dr. Fong checked my vitals with practiced efficiency. Your heart rate is elevated, but that is to be expected given the circumstances. No actual cardiac event. The fake heart attack was convincing, though. I learned from watching too many medical dramas, I said grimly. Frank pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. Walter, I have to tell you something. The situation is worse than we thought. Worse? I repeated. Geraldine found something in their financial records, Frank said. Derek has been embezzling from his clients' investment accounts for the past 3 years. He has stolen over $2 million. The RCMP has been investigating him for months, but they did not have enough evidence to move forward. Until now. Jesus, I breathed. That is not all, Geraldine spoke up, her voice crisp and efficient. He also forged your daughter's signature on several loan applications. She may not even know the full extent of their debt. I found bank accounts in her name that she does not appear to have accessed. I stared at her. Are you saying Derek has been defrauding my daughter too? It appears that way. She is complicit in the scheme against you, but she may also be a victim of her husband's broader criminal enterprise. I did not know how to feel about that. It did not excuse Patricia's willingness to drug me, to steal from me, to let me die. But it complicated things. What happens now? I asked. Now we spring the trap, Frank said, leaning forward. Patricia and Derek think you are in emergency care, possibly dying. They will be here soon, trying to get access to you, trying to push forward their guardianship scheme. Harold Fitch is already on his way. He called Derek 20 minutes ago, eager to help with the paperwork. Harold Fitch, I said. The corrupt lawyer. Former lawyer, Frank corrected. As of tomorrow morning, he will be facing charges from the Law Society. But tonight, he thinks he is about to score a big payday by helping your daughter steal your assets. And when he gets here, we let him incriminate himself. Then we bring in the authorities. I nodded slowly. And Patricia? That depends on you, Walter. She committed conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted drugging, and conspiracy to commit assault. She could face serious charges. But she is still your daughter. The decision about how to proceed is yours. I looked down at my hands. These hands had changed Patricia's diapers, made her school lunches, worked double shifts to pay for her university education. These hands had held her mother's hand when she died, had held Patricia as she sobbed at the funeral, had signed the check for her wedding reception. "I want to talk to her," I said. "Before the police. I need to understand." Frank and Dr. Fong exchanged glances. "That can be arranged," Frank said. "But Walter, you need to prepare yourself. She may not be the person you want her to be." "I know," I said, "but I need to see it for myself." They arrived 45 minutes later. I heard them before I saw them, Patricia's heels clicking down the hospital corridor, Derek's voice raised in argument with the security officer at the nursing station. "I am his daughter," Patricia was shouting. "You cannot keep me from seeing my own father." "Ma'am," the officer replied calmly, "visiting hours are over. You can wait in the family room, and someone will update you shortly." The door to my room was closed, but I could hear everything through the intercom system Frank had arranged. "This is ridiculous," Derek muttered. "We need to see him now, before he talks to anyone." "Derek," Patricia hissed, "keep your voice down." "Why? He is probably unconscious anyway. Did you see the way he collapsed? That was not acting." "Then why are they keeping us out?" "Because hospitals are bureaucratic nightmares. Look, Harold is on his way. Once he gets here, we will push through the red tape. Lawyers have ways of making things happen." "What if he does not make it?" Patricia's voice cracked. "What if he dies before we get the guardianship?" "Then we contest the will," Derek replied coldly. "Harold says that is actually easier. We claim he was already mentally incapacitated when he wrote it. Any bequests outside the family get challenged. We still get everything." "Everything," Patricia repeated, but the hesitation in her voice was new. "What is wrong with you?" Derek demanded. "Nothing. It is just—" He looked so small, lying on the floor. So old. "He is old. That is the whole point. He used to carry me on his shoulders," Patricia whispered. "When I was little, he would carry me around the backyard and pretend to be a horse. He called me his princess." There was a long pause. "Do not go soft on me now," Derek said, his voice hard. "We are too close. Everything we have worked for is right there. One sick old man standing between us and freedom." "I know," Patricia said. "I know. It is just hard. It will be easier when it is over. Trust me." I reached over and turned off the intercom. I had heard enough. Frank looked at me with concern. "Walter, are you sure you want to go through with this?" I nodded. "Bring them in." Frank opened the door and spoke quietly to someone in the hallway. A moment later, Patricia and Derek were escorted into my room. Patricia's face transformed when she saw me sitting up in bed. "Dad!" she cried, rushing forward. "Oh, thank God! You are awake!" She tried to embrace me, but I held up my hand. She stopped, confusion flickering across her features. "Sit down," I said. "Both of you." Derek's eyes narrowed, but he pulled 2 chairs from the corner and they sat. "Dad," Patricia began, her voice trembling. "I was so worried. When you collapsed, I thought." "You thought it might be your lucky day," I finished. "What?" "I heard everything, Patricia. In the office, before dinner, you and Derek planning to drug me, declare me incompetent, steal my house and my pension." Patricia's face went white. "Dad, I do not know what you think you heard, but—" "Stop," I said quietly. "Just stop." Derek stood up. "This is absurd. Walter, you are clearly confused. The stress of your cardiac event has affected your memory. We should call a doctor." "Sit down, Derek." Something in my voice made him obey. "I know about the sedatives in the eggnog," I continued. "I know about Harold Fitch and his pet psychiatrist. I know about the guardianship petition you plan to file. I know about the $420,000 in debt you were hoping my assets would clear." Derek's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "I also know," I added, turning to look directly at my daughter, "that when I was lying on your living room floor, you debated whether to let me die." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, You said okay. I heard you say it. Derek asked if you should just let me die, and you said okay." The tears spilled down her cheeks. She did not deny it. "For 40 years, I have lived in that house on Macri Avenue," I said. "I drove my old truck. I wore my old clothes. I let you believe I was nothing more than a retired janitor living paycheck to paycheck. I did it because I wanted you to build your own life, earn your own success, develop your own character. I thought if you did not know about the money, you would learn the value of hard work. What money? Derek interjected, his eyes suddenly sharp with interest. I ignored him. Instead, I reached into the drawer of my bedside table and pulled out a folder. I handed it to Patricia. She opened it. Her hands began to shake. She stammered. This says you own Jennings Holdings Limited. I confirmed. $180 million in commercial real estate across Western Canada, plus investment accounts, plus the charitable foundation, plus the numbered companies. You were planning to steal a house worth $600,000 when you could have inherited 100 times that. Derek grabbed the folder from Patricia's hands. His eyes scanned the documents frantically. This cannot be real. It is real. Every penny. And as of midnight tonight, none of it goes to you. Derek looked up, his face twisted with rage. You cannot do that. She is your daughter. She is entitled. She is entitled to nothing, I said. Not anymore. The will has been changed. Everything goes to the Walter and Margaret Jennings Foundation, dedicated to funding education for underprivileged children in Winnipeg's North End. The same neighborhood you called garbage. The same house that smells like pine sol. Dad, please, Patricia sobbed. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I do not know what happened to me, Derek said. Do not blame Derek for your choices, I said. You made those choices yourself. Every one of them. You chose greed over love. You chose manipulation over honesty. You chose to let your father die on the floor rather than risk your scheme falling apart. She collapsed forward, her head in her hands, weeping. There is more, I continued. Geraldine? The forensic accountant stepped forward from the corner where she had been waiting. She handed Derek a second folder. These are the records of your embezzlement from client accounts, she said calmly. Over $2 million across 17 investors. The RCMP has been building a case for months. This evidence will help them complete it. Derek's face went gray. You cannot prove anything. We can prove everything, Frank said, stepping into the room. Audio recordings, financial documents, sworn statements from witnesses. Additionally, we have evidence that you forged your wife's signature on multiple loan applications, accumulating debt in her name without her knowledge. Patricia looked up, her tear-streaked face confused. What? Your husband has been defrauding you as well as your father, Frank explained. Several of the debts you believe you owe were incurred without your consent or knowledge. Derek turned on Patricia. Do not listen to them. They are trying to turn you against me. Is it true? Patricia demanded, her voice rising. Did you forge my signature? Baby, I can explain. Did you forge my signature? Derek said nothing. The door opened again. 2 RCMP officers in plainclothes entered, followed by a uniformed officer. Behind them was a balding man in an expensive suit who I recognized from photographs as Harold Fitch. Derek Sullivan, one of the plainclothes officers, said, You are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit assault. You have the right to retain and instruct counsel without delay. They pulled Derek to his feet and handcuffed his hands behind his back. He was shouting protests, denials, threats, but they fell on deaf ears. Harold Fitch stood frozen in the doorway, his face ashen. Mr. Fitch, the second plainclothes officer said, we have some questions for you as well. The Law Society has suspended your license, pending investigation, and we have evidence linking you to multiple cases of fraudulent guardianship proceedings. They led both men out of the room. The door closed behind them. Patricia and I were alone. She sat in her chair, her mascara streaked, her designer dress wrinkled, her entire world crumbling around her. I remembered her as a 5-year-old, running through the sprinklers in our tiny backyard, laughing with pure joy. I remembered her at 12, crying at her mother's funeral, clinging to me like I was the only solid thing in a dissolving world. I remembered her at 22, graduating from the University of Manitoba, beaming with pride as I took her photograph. Where had that girl gone? When had she become this stranger? Why? I asked quietly. I just need to understand. Why? Patricia was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was hollow. I hated that house, she said. I hated being poor. I hated wearing clothes from Value Village, while the other girls had Gap and Guess. I hated packing lunches with no-name peanut butter while they bought cafeteria food. I hated telling people my dad was a janitor. I gave you everything I had, I said. But you did not have enough, she replied. That is what I thought. You did not have enough to matter. And when Derek came along, with his big dreams and his expensive tastes, I thought I had finally escaped. I thought I had finally become someone worth being. And when the money ran out, when the dreams turned to debt, I panicked. Derek said we just needed a little help to get back on our feet, that your assets would give us breathing room, that you were old anyway, that you would be happier in a home where people could take care of you. Is that what you told yourself? She looked at the floor. I told myself a lot of things. I leaned back against my pillows, suddenly exhausted. There will be charges, I said. Conspiracy, at minimum. Frank says you may face prison time. Patricia flinched, like I had struck her. But I have asked the Crown to consider your cooperation as a mitigating factor. If you testify against Derek and Harold, if you help the RCMP recover the money he stole, they may offer you a deal. Why would you do that? She whispered. After everything I did? Because 40 years ago, your mother made me promise to always protect you, even from yourself. I failed at that somehow, failed to teach you the things that mattered. But I will not break my promise to Margaret. Not completely. Patricia broke down then, truly broke down. Not the theatrical tears of a schemer caught in the act, but the raw, ugly sobbing of a woman confronting the wreckage of her own choices. I let her cry. I did not comfort her. Some things cannot be fixed with a hug. Finally, she looked up at me with swollen eyes. Is there any way back? She asked. Any way to be your daughter again? I thought about it for a long moment. Not today, I said. Maybe not for a long time. But there is a program the foundation runs, supporting single mothers in the North End. Tutoring, job training, childcare. They always need volunteers. People willing to do the unglamorous work of showing up day after day, helping without expecting anything in return. You want me to volunteer? I want you to learn what I should have taught you long ago. That value does not come from what you own or what you take. It comes from what you give. Patricia wiped her eyes. She looked at me with something that might have been the beginning of understanding. I will try, she said. That is all I ask. A nurse came in to check my vitals. Frank returned to discuss the legal proceedings. Cynthia Park stopped by to confirm that the recordings had been secured and would be admissible in court. By morning, the news had broken. The embezzlement scandal made the front page of the Winnipeg Free Press. Derek's mugshot appeared on CTV. Harold Fitch's law firm issued a statement distancing themselves from his actions. The story of the school janitor, who was secretly one of the city's wealthiest men, became a sensation, picked up by media across the country. I did not give interviews. I did not seek attention. I went back to my bungalow on Macrae Avenue, the house that smelled like sawdust and pine sol, and I sat in my worn armchair by the window. The Christmas tree was still up, a small artificial thing I had used for 20 years. Margaret's picture smiled at me from the mantel. Outside, snow was falling, soft and silent, covering the street in white. I had survived. I had won. But as I sat there in the quiet, I realized that victory felt nothing like I expected. There was no satisfaction, no triumph, just an emptiness where my daughter used to be. My phone buzzed. A text from Frank. Court date set for February. Looks like Derek will plead guilty to avoid trial. Patricia is cooperating fully. Foundation board meeting Thursday to discuss new education initiative. I typed a reply. Thanks, Frank. See you Thursday. I set the phone down and looked at the falling snow. Somewhere out there, my daughter was facing the consequences of her choices. Somewhere out there, her husband was sitting in a cell, contemplating the ruin of his schemes. Somewhere out there, a corrupt lawyer was watching his career dissolve. And here, in this small house, in the north end of Winnipeg, A 67-year-old man was learning that you can protect your wealth, you can protect your legacy, you can even protect your life, but you cannot protect your heart from the people you love. I reached for the photo of Margaret on the mantel. I traced the line of her smile with my finger. I tried, I whispered. I tried to raise her right. Margaret did not answer. She never did. But somehow, in the silence, I felt like she understood. The snow kept falling. The old house creaked and settled around me. And slowly, so slowly, I began to imagine what came next. Not revenge. That was finished. But maybe redemption. For Patricia, if she was willing to earn it. And for me, a chance to build something new from the ashes of what I had lost. I stood up, my knees protesting, and walked to the kitchen to make myself a cup of tea. The kettle was old, the mug was chipped, and the tea was from a box I had bought on sale at Safeway. But the water was hot, the house was warm, and outside a new day was beginning. That was enough. For now, that was enough.